What's going on, you guys? I'm Tyler, your wandering therapist. I'm just out here on a beautiful afternoon in the springtime, running my dog, and I was just thinking about the power of habit. There's a really good book by Charles Duhigg that talks about the power of habit and how we get into rhythms with our behaviors to where as soon as we've established a habit for something, it takes no energy for us to actually follow through on that behavior anymore. And so I was thinking about my proclivity here to bite my fingernails as I was walking down the hill and thinking, like, why is it so hard for me to try to stop biting my fingernails? This is something that I've been doing basically for my whole life. I've tried probably literally 1,000 times to try to stop biting my fingernails, and somehow I always end up coming back to it over and over and over again, and it never seems to stop. And I can go for a little while without doing it, but then I inevitably forget, and then I find myself right back to having bloody fingers, and I'm biting my nails again. And I usually do it because I'm stressed out and anxious and other things, but it's been something that's been with me for a long time in my life. And as I was walking down the hill today, I had this sight in front of me, and I'm going to maybe just turn around and show it to you really quickly. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but down below me here, there's a set of roads. See that road right down there directly behind me? That road, when I moved in here, it's fairly close to my house. It's what I usually come up to come get into the mountains. And on my way back down, I just noticed that road, and I thought, you know, when I started coming up here, that was like a footpath. That was barely even visible. It looked just the same color as the weeds. And now, after a couple of years of traveling on it over and over again, and then other people started to travel on it, and eventually people have started driving their ATVs on it. Now it's actually a road that comes up the mountainside right to where the gate is, where you can access the mountain. And I thought, that's exactly how habit works. That's what goes on with us with our habits is that we actually start going down this road, and at first it's just a footpath. We do something in order to cope with something, and it feels good to us, and so the brain learns it and remembers it. And then the more we repeat it, we actually create what's something called our neurons. Our brain cells actually, there's a term that says the neurons that fire together wire together, meaning that when I use a certain neuron pathway, meaning I've got a problem, I make a decision, that decision pays off with a reward in some way. The more that I do that, the more that those neurons fire together, and it becomes almost like that road that I just showed you in our own brains, where that pathway carves itself out and it becomes something called myelinated. And myelination happens in our brain cells where it actually makes that circuit stronger and faster and harder to change. And the reason for that is that it allows us to use our resources elsewhere, because now that habit's just going to happen without us having to think about it and use our resources to go and follow through with it every time. So for good or for evil, our habits become very powerful, hard things to break, because our bodies are geared towards using our energy in other places. We don't want to have to use our energy for those things over and over again, and they become like these well-worn pathways in our brain. And the power of changing a habit means that I'm going to have to go through the discomfort of walking down a different way and up a different way than I've been going, even if it means I'm going through thorns and thistles and struggles, to carve out a new pathway and allow for the brush to grow back over the original road that I'd carved out, so to speak, in my habits. So think about your own habits, something you're wanting to change right now. It might be that you drink too much, or it might be that you get angry at your kids too often, or that you get in drama with your partner, or you bite your fingernails, or whatever else you do. Those habits, maybe it's the soda that you get at 1 a.m. every single afternoon. Those habits that you have right now are powerful, not because they're the right thing to do, but because they're just the thing that you've done repetitively for a long time. So if you want to change a habit, you identify the thing that's starting the habit, you lay a new behavior over the top of it, even if it's uncomfortable, and you continue to repeat that behavior over the top of it until it becomes the new habit. Because our brains can change. There's something called neuroplasticity. It allows us to change. Our brains are constantly moving and changing depending on what we put into them and how we treat them. So if I want to change a habit, I have to understand that I'm going to have to do repetitively something different to lay over the top of the old habit. So for me with my fingernails, if I want to stop biting my fingernails, I'm going to have to find something else to cope with the stress that I feel in the moment. And then I'm going to have to repeat that a number of times until that new response has become the new habit. And then it'll mean that I don't have to worry about biting my fingernails anymore, because something else will be taking its place. My willpower in a short period of time, for a couple of weeks, needs to be used to change that habit. But once it's established, I can put my willpower into something else. So hopefully this is helpful to you. I'd love to know what habits you're trying to break. I'd love to know what you're doing to lay over the top of those habits. And I wish you guys a bunch of good luck. Have a good one.